Hey team, today we are working on a short series on how to improve our overhead shoulder movement. For today, you will need one short stick and one long stick, preferably if you have a small hand towel, because we will lay face down at some point. And when we're laying face down, we don't want the head jutting forward. We want to try to keep the head retracted as much as possible. So the towel helps us give us a little elevation to make sure that our neck is in alignment. The movements we are going to go over today involve shoulder internal rotation, shoulder external rotation, and shoulder flexion. And so those are primary movements that you will use dynamically as you go through your overhead movements. So just a little example from if I use a short stick, envision I'm using a barbell. If I'm doing barbell snatches, I'm going up my body. As I begin my snatch, my shoulders go into internal rotation. As I punch the bell or the barbell up, I go into external rotation, punch the arms up, and I end up in shoulder flexion. When I'm in shoulder flexion, as you can see, the ideal position would be for your arms to be in line with your ears, and your head is in line with your shoulders, your rib cage, and your hips in a straight line. For most people that are watching this, you do not want to be in a position where you're overhead with load and you're arching your back, or your arms are necessarily too far back into shoulder flexion, because that may cause some sort of injury. So part of what we're trying to do today is work on building a more resilient body, so that if we end up in positions that we're not accustomed to, that we are able to absorb those loads, or if we aren't able to absorb those loads, the tissues are still stronger where we can bounce back a little bit faster from going too far. From a practical standpoint, if I show you with a kettlebell, same concept. If I go through with press, I press and my flexion. So my arm is in shoulder flexion. Everything is stacked in one single line. If I go through and show you a kettlebell snatch, same thing. As I get set up, same with the bar. I'm in internal rotation, external rotation, flexion. And so this gives you an example of what it looks like dynamically to go through internal rotation, external rotation, finishing out in shoulder flexion. I'm going to put this bell over to the side. We will start with a small stick, working internal rotation of the shoulder. When you go through this, you can do this from a tall standing position, a horse stance, which is your feet are a little bit wider than hips width apart. You drop down a few inches. If you see me from the side, again, same, that straight line. But today I will show you from a tall kneeling position, both knees, and the reason why is I have very long arms. Sometimes I don't always fit in frame in my home. So whether you want to go tall standing, horse stance, or tall kneeling, it's up to you. I will start with the tall kneeling position. So I'll show you from the back. As I get ready for internal rotation of the shoulder, my right hand, the palm is facing forward, facing the back of my head. It will set up at the base of the skull, known as the occipital lobe. My left hand is on the bottom, facing back, right on my lumbar spine. I'm going to use my right hand and pull my left shoulder up into internal rotation. And I'm going to hold this position, smooth, deep breaths. You generally want to hold this stretch for about 20 to 30 seconds. Loosen up that shoulder, get the tissues prepared as we continue to push and stress them to make them more resilient for whatever you throw at. After about 20 to 30 seconds, I'm going to take my top hand, my right hand, and I'm going to bring it back down to the bottom of this, or back down towards the base of the skull. And then I'm going to see if I can pull a little bit more into internal rotation, really stressing that internal rotation. Again, we're going to hold this for approximately 20 to 30 seconds. Do what you comfortably can. Listen to your body. After about 20 to 30 seconds, in order for us to help strengthen our range of motion, we want to shorten the stick by pushing the stick together, but trying to maintain that same height. Holding for a few seconds, Release the tension by pulling back apart. We're going to do 2 more reps, pushing the stick together, pulling the stick apart, and our last one, pushing the stick together, holding for another 3, 2, 1. I'm going to release that top hand, try to maintain that same height and hold for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly release the arm back down towards the floor. And then we're going to switch hands. So now my left arm will be, or my left hand will be on top. My right hand will be on bottom. Again, the left hand is at the base of the skull. The right hand is at the lumbar spine, facing out, facing in. So I begin by pulling that right shoulder into internal rotation with that left hand pulling up. Once I get to that top, I'm going to hold that position for 20 to 30 seconds. As we go through this, we also want to make sure that our fingers stay on the stick, all fingers wrapped around as much as possible. I'm going to lower this left hand back down towards the base of the skull. I'm going to try to pull a little bit more into internal rotation at that right shoulder. Smooth, deep breaths. Again, do what you comfortably can. One of our mottos in stick mobility is self-regulation. So just because what I look like doesn't mean you're going to look the same as me. You could look better than me. You cannot go as far as me. That's fine. Just do what your body's able to do. From here, we're going to shorten the stick for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pull the stick apart for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shorten the stick for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pull the stick apart for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shorten the stick one last time for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release that top hand down. Hold that position for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And slowly release that right arm out of your internal rotation. And that'll be it for the internal rotation. For external rotation, I want to make sure that as I set up, that my stick ends up halfway in between my elbow and my shoulder. And then my hand will go up into like a 90-degree angle. Because I'm in a tall kneel, it's a little bit off of a 90-degree angle, but once I actually begin my external rotation, it will end up in a 90-degree angle. So if you watch me from the front, tall kneel, I'm going to retract my left shoulder back. So I'm pinching my shoulder blades together in the back. Now again, mostly a 90-degree angle, but once I begin my external rotation, it will end up in a 90-degree angle. But if you're standing or in your horse stance, you should have no problem. I'm going to take my right hand, grab the bottom of the stick. From here, I'm going to pull that bottom end of the stick forward to pull my left shoulder into shoulder external rotation. Again, just similar like we did with the internal rotation, we are holding this position for about 20 to 30 seconds. There will be no reset for this one. You'll go as far as you comfortably can. And from here, to help us strengthen our end range of motion at shoulder external rotation, we're going to pull the stick apart for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shorten the stick for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pull the stick apart for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shorten the stick for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last one each. Pull the stick apart for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shorten the stick for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release the tension by returning back to the starting position. Shake it out if you need to. I know I do. And we're going to switch sides. Real quick, as I show you from the side, again, the stick ends up about halfway between the elbow and the shoulder. I retract back. One of the tendencies or compensations that we have is as I pull the shoulder back, I let my spine extend. So we want to make sure as much as possible that we're not arching at the back, that we're just focusing on that shoulder external rotation. So the right hand is on top. I'm grabbing the top of the stick. Left hand is on bottom. Grab the top of the stick. Pull that right arm into shoulder external rotation. So not just from and we're holding this for 20 to 30 seconds. This is also an excellent movement if you're an overhead athlete, quarterback, pitcher, volleyball player, anytime where your arm is going to end up in external rotation, tennis player, above the head to generate force, generate power. These will all be all those athletes this would be beneficial for. We're going to pull the stick apart for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shorten the stick for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pull the stick apart for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shorten the stick for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last one each. Pull the stick apart for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last one. Shorten the stick for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release the tension and relax. We are going to get into shoulder flexion from so again, for this one, you can go into a tall standing, horse stance. I will go into a half kneeling position, again, so I can fit in the frame. With shoulder flexion, this is going to be single side shoulder flexion, but also working shoulder flexion at a very, long range of motion, so really in range of motion. And the reason why that's important is, so I showed you a kettlebell snatch earlier with the proper technique, but sometimes as you get fatigued, you go a little bit further. Ideally, you want to end up in straight up flexion. Sometimes you get fatigued and you're really throwing it back. And you want to, again, make sure, I've seen it with my own eyes where people tear their labrum going too far back. So we want to build up that resilience if we end up going really far back in our shoulder flexion, especially if you're doing something like barbell or kettlebell snatches. So again, I'll show you. If I go too far back, I want to be able to absorb the load and not rip my shoulder apart. Or go with it to learn how to bail and still maintain that shoulder integrity where I'm not injuring myself. So I'm going to go in a half kneeling position for this variation of shoulder flexion. The shoulder that is flexing, so if I'm going to start with my right side, my right hip is going to be up if I'm in a half kneeling position. If you're in a standing position or a horse stance, this doesn't apply to you. Think about, I'm flexing at the shoulder, I'm flexing at the hip like if I was going to go through and dunk on somebody. So I'm in my half kneeling position. My right arm is on top. My left hand is on bottom, and I'll show you from both sides. Both of the hands are facing forward. I have a nice firm grip with all of my fingers around. This movement is called a seesaw, but it's a half seesaw. So the seesaw version that we're not going to show today is shoulder extension, when the shoulders are going lifting backwards. We're working on shoulder flexion. So working that passive stretch first, we push the bottom arm forward and our right arm, goes back into shoulder flexion. And I'm holding this position just like our previous movements for 20 to 30 seconds, working that passive stretch, prepping the tissues for shoulder flexion. As you get more comfortable, again, you can push that left arm forward, my bottom arm, to really get that right arm into shoulder flexion. Once I'm at my in range of motion, I'm going to pull the stick apart for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then I'm going to shorten the stick for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pull the stick apart for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shorten the stick for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last one each. Pull the stick apart for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And shorten the stick for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release the tension and return back to the starting position. As we get ready for the left side, as we set up, when you're starting, you want to make sure that the stick is along the trap. And that gives you a nice meaty part to sit the stick on that feasibly won't cause any sort of discomfort. Showing the other side. So left hand is on top this time. Right hand is on bottom this time. I'm pushing my right arm forward, pulling my left arm back into shoulder flexion. Smooth, deep breaths. And again, I am holding that passive stretch for 20 to 30 seconds, prepping the tissues before we try to strengthen the tissues at our end range of motion by pulling the stick apart and shortening the stick. So we have the stretch, and then we also have the strength aspect of the motion. From here, I pull the stick apart to help strengthen that end range of motion and continue to hold for another 3, 2, 1. Now I shorten the stick for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pull the stick apart for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shorten the stick for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last one each. Pull the stick apart for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And shorten the stick for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release the tension and relax. That gives us unilateral shoulder flexion variation. Shake the shoulders out if you need to. And for our last movement, we're still working shoulder flexion. We are going to lay in a prone position so that it's face down. You will need your short stick. Depending on your shoulder mobility, you will start with your hands out wide. I will show you with the variation that I need because my shoulders are a little bit more mobile, so I need to bring my hands in. But as we lay face down, again, we want to make sure that our head is not forward. So ideally, you have some sort of towel or something to slightly elevate the head where your neck is retracted. As we go through the motion, we want to make sure that our elbows are extended, not flexed. We also want to make sure that we are neutral at the wrist, that we do not extend at the wrist. Okay, so I'm going to lay face down with my arms out wide first, just so you can see. When you lay face down as well, again, the head is down. We also want to make sure to keep the chest down. So tendency is to want to kind of lift the chest, extend at the spine to lift further. You want to make sure that the hips stay down, that you're not lifting the hips. Also that your feet stay down, that the feet are not coming up off of the floor. So if I am trying to work shoulder flexion, for me, again, I have very mobile shoulders. So as I lift up, I'm in my flexion. I'm pulling the stick apart at about 50% tension, and this allows us to strengthen in that shoulder flexion, but also strengthen again all through the posterior chain, upper traps, mid traps. Lats are getting involved by actively pulling the stick apart isometrically. Again, if I am trying to work on shoulder flexion myself, or somebody who's maybe watching this at home, you'll start wide, but depending on your shoulder mobility, you might be able to keep going up, 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 and all the way around. So for somebody like myself, I need to bring my hands in closer together, about shoulder width apart. Again, making sure that my wrists do not extend, that my elbows do not flex, that they stay extended. Everything stays down. Now, if I pull stick apart 50% tension, I lift up as high as I comfortably can.
That's it for me. I can't go any further. I hold this position for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly come down with control. We're back up, lifting up, pulling stick apart, 50% tension. Get as high as you can. Once you're at your height, you hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly come back down with control. Lifting back up. Hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly come back down with control.
And relax. That gives us an option for working shoulder flexion bilaterally versus unilaterally, like we did with the half seesaw. And again, bilateral if I'm doing military press with a barbell. Again, I want to make sure that as I press, that I'm in that stack position. Come back down. That'll be it for today. Thank you for joining along. Hopefully you learned something. And I will see you again shortly with more series to help improve your mobility and your overall strength. I appreciate you joining.